this is what I'm going to show you how to make in this video. We're going to be talking all about making hard techno kicks. I've got a new technique to show you guys. That's why I made this video, to get a ton of texture and make the bass and just the overall kick that much better. So, if you guys enjoyed these videos, definitely like this video as well as subscribe if you haven't already. Also want to let you guys know, I just dropped a new sample pack, which is perfect for you if you clicked on this video. It's called the hardest hard rave techno kick and bass grooves ever. The link is right at the top of the description. It's 20 of these folders where you can see you get a full kick groove with the kick and bass, plus the individual kick and the individual bass. And you can hear all of these are super solid, so it's an amazing library to go and have all these different permutations that you can combine together to get your own new kicks, right? Like, it's not just like these loops, but also the fact that you can build something new out of this. So yeah, plus on top of this, I've included a few bonus synth loops. And some drum loops. So you can hear it's got everything you need to make a really awesome hard techno track. You know, guys, I really don't make a whole lot off of YouTube, but with these sample packs, it helps keep me going so I can keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. But it's really not just about me. I'm only a small part of this equation. It's really about you guys. You know, this is at a very accessible price, a huge library that can instantly take your tracks to the next level right now for the style. Like, if you guys have been struggling, this is something that will instantly take your tracks up a notch, is having a better kick and a better bass, plus the other stuff that's in here for you to work with as well. So don't sleep on this while it's available. Links at the top of the description. Do yourself a favor. Treat yourself. You deserve it. Plus, again, it's going to take your tracks to the next level right now. The second you download this folder, you'll be making better music. So, links at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Let's dive into the video. Alright, so, I've got a kick here, and this is, you know, on first glance, pretty standard kick setup, right? We've got our main, like, punch kick, and then our rumble bass. We're at 144 BPM. Now, what's really making this different is under the surface, right? And when it comes to the kick, so it's pretty much just layering together like one really good bass kick with one really good mid-range and high kind of like click. And you can see there's no like extra processing. It's just when you put these two, you put one that's in the low end on top of one that's in the mid-range and highs, and not just like randomly. Like, you can see they line up. Like, you've got these like same low frequency, you know, and it's like very like well chosen samples where one's got a really good bass and one's got a really good mid-range and high end. But it's like you can see like the one that's got the good mid-range, if I turn off the bass and then just use the bass from this kick, see, it's not as punchy. So you get the best kick where really when you look for one that has the good mids and highs and one that has the good lows. Because this one, if I put on the mids and highs, see, not as strong. So it's like getting the best of each rather than sitting there and like driving yourself crazy trying to find one sample that does it all. So we've got that. Then we have, like I said, the bass. And this is really where it's kind of like some new techniques. So what's happening here is we're using the same layer that I used as the bass. So this is another important thing. Like, if you're going to make a rumble bass and you have your kick split into different layers like this, where you have one is like the low end and one is the mids and highs, when you're going to make the rumble bass, use the one that is the bass. Because then it'll be like in the same key and it'll kind of match up a little bit better with your actual kick. Versus if you use the ones in the mids and highs, the rumble bass isn't going to be as like kind of connected, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so we've got that. And then what's really making this one unique is the filter delay. Now, very important prerequisite to this. Filter delay comes by default like this, where you have one down the middle and one pan to the left and one pan to the right. You want to make sure that right away, if you're going to use this for any kind of bass, you want to put the panning on 0, because pretty much Noisy has said this one time, and I've pretty much just ever since then like not gotten out of my brain. It's like the fatter you want a sound to be and the more power you want it to have, they were talking about drum and bass, but it works totally for hard techno too. The more power you want it to have, the more mono you want it to be. So when we're getting to like a deep sub bass or a kick or something like that, you really just want that to be completely mono. Like there's nothing there that you really want to have be stereo. There's nothing that you're gaining from having stereo happening, and the stereo stuff is going to take away from that power that you're trying to get from this. So all that goes to say, yeah, just make sure the filter delay isn't doing like a crazy pan, because that's going to mess up your bass pretty quickly. But essentially what's happening here is filter delay is, yes, there's the whole thing about the filters and stuff, but it's really just like it's like this triple delay. It's almost like you have 3 delays in one, and you can get them doing all these cool little rhythms because they're all synced, but it's like you can get these different subdivisions. And yeah, so the way we're doing this is I have one with no filter, which is just 16th notes, right? And that's this one. So you have that kind of as like the main, right? Because you obviously still want to have the bass. But then what we're doing is you can see on this delay, so you can hear that's creating like one rhythm there with this like filtered delay, which is on the 6th. And see how when I bring in that other delay, now it goes from just to like you're hearing the 2 delays play into each other because they're at different times. That is the beauty of filter delay. And then when you bring in that original one, and they're all feeding each other, and that's the cool thing about it. It's like it just really allows you to create this great little rhythm here with the delays. And this is really going to help because obviously, like, you know, when you're making these kinds of kicks, like a lot of people ask, how do you get from just like a deep like rumble where it's like just sub to like that more crunchy, like kind of like mid-rangey thing we would associate with hard techno? And really, it's about this. It's like it's not creating like just that subby sound and then trying to distort it. It's creating a sound that has the sub but also has that mid-range and high, and that's exactly what this does. You're literally creating the sub here, and then you're able to create these 2 extra little like mid-range and high rhythms, right? So we've got that, but then there's another element to it which is really important, which is multiband distortion. And this is working for a few different things. One, obviously it adds texture because you're distorting this sound, and that's just going to change it a little bit and give you more texture. But also, distortion, if you think about it, is really kind of just like compression, right? And that's what distortion does a lot of the time, is it kind of like compresses sounds and pulls them up a little bit. So if you have these delays and you want them to become like more prominent, distortion is perfect for that. And so you can hear if I turn off all the distortion and then I'll turn it on. Here's without it. And then with it. Do you see what I mean? Obviously, it's making things fatter. It brings out the bass a lot. And we'll talk about that too, because there's very much a technique to not messing that up and getting it right. But really, it's like bringing out the filter a little bit. Because if you just do this, you're going to be listening to your track and you'll be like, yeah, like, it has a rumble, it has a bass. Why isn't it matching up with reference tracks? Well, you still need that extra push. So this is a multiband. We've got one it's got pedal on the highs. One with amp on the mids. Without it, and then with it you can hear that's where a lot of that texture really happens, is in the mid-range. And then on the lows we have this bass amp, which obviously makes that fatter. And that's another thing too, and that's the beauty of this kind of distortion, because like if you just put an amp on the whole kick, like no multiband, like the mids, lows, and highs are all going into the same distortion, you're not gonna get that like subby rumble. You might get some cool texture, but it's not, because it's all gonna be, it's that compression thing with the distortion again. Like the mids and highs are going to compress the lows and make it a little bit quieter. But if you do it this way, where you split it and you're focusing on just the lows, just the mids, just the highs, you still get it all, but now you can keep the lows really fat and have a bit more control. Finally, we're just cutting out a little bit of low end where it would get in the way of headroom for like mixing and mastering a track. And then I have these two utilities, and these are two different rhythms. Basically what I'm doing with this is another kind of new technique, is using this to kind of get that sidechain thing where it bounces off of the kick, right? Because you don't want the rumble, like without this, the rumble is just like this constant thing. But if you put on this, and you see it's like shaping the volume up every quarter note, now it bounces off of the kick. And so I have this one. I can see, I want to show you like how much of a difference it makes too if you just make a little change. Because you can see this one has this automation, and then this one right here has this automation. So we go like, now let's see the second one. It's like a whole different groove. So that just goes to show you like why you want to use these kind of more like shaping things rather than side chaining. Because that little tiny difference in the shape of the automation there, like that little thing in the middle that I put, you know, that makes it sound very different. So if you just side chaining and you can't really see that or shape it yourself, you're going to get stuck a little bit. But I think this just allows you to really like get the groove that you want. Then on the group, the only processing I usually do is just a bit of a limiter. And I've shown you guys this a little bit before. But again, it's just one of those things where the kick is not really clipping. Like, we're not using this to fix clipping. It's taking a sound that's below 0 and pushing it so it hits 0, so we're still not clipping. But everything, it's like the peaks hit 0, and then all the things that aren't peaks also can get pulled through. But it's not like, I mean, on some levels you might say, oh, well, isn't that just flattening your sound out? That's what's great about the limiter, is it's not so like heavy, and also it's not that much of it too. I mean, this boost is really not that much. So like, if I turn this up even more, I mean, obviously then yes, it will be flattening it and over compressing it. Right, you get to a point where it just becomes awful, but right there, it's still just like a healthy amount. And it's one of those things too, where this is not gonna do all of it. Like, if we turn this off, you can still hear it. It's very solid. Super fat, right? And then turning it on just adds that like 5 or 10%. That's where you want to be. You're not going to just make like a flat kick and a not very strong bass and then go, oh yeah, we're just going to turn up the limiter at the end and make it fat. Because it's going to sound like garbage. You have to have these sound good. Like, it has to be a good thing going into the limiter. And then the limiter just adds that little bit of a thing. It's really not even a magic trick. Like, it's really not even a thing where you could go like, oh yeah, like, of course his bass sounds better because he put the limiter on at the end. Because, like, it's really emphasis on, like, it has to be good before the limiter. The limiter is just that little thing to go even further and make it just a little bit stronger. And yeah, so that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the hardest hard rave techno, kick, and bass grooves. The link is right at the top of the description. Again, it's a super accessible pack, and you get all of these really solid kicks, all 20 of these with the individual bass loops, plus the kick loops. Again, I'll just play some of these. These are some of the best kicks I've ever heard on the market. So if you want to make your best track right now, link is right at the top of the description. It's something you can grab right now. You know, these kicks plus the free bonus synth loops and the bonus drum loops, I promise you today you will make the best track you've ever made, or the best sounding track you've ever made, because this is something that will really elevate your production. It's not just about creating a toy for you guys to play with. It's actually something to get you out of a rut. So link is at the top of the description. It's also very affordably priced for what it's giving you as well. Definitely don't miss out while it's still available. Thanks so much for the support, guys. I love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.